Hey, hello. Hey, welcome back, A&P students. Man, it's great to connect with you again, doing this and just continuing our process here, talking about the bone. Man, we are in for a treat today. This picture, let me get a little arrow here. I know I'm starting off real early with the arrows, but pretty excited about that picture right there. I mean, I love that picture. We when each semester or course when we do this, we talk about this picture. Man, it is a fantastic picture because it shows just how amazing the machinery of our body and what it and how it develops and we're going to talk about today the bone development, starting off in just those early days of post fertilization and as our running joke is, I'm sorry you didn't hear that word, but just the way the bone develops and the way the body can do all this stuff and the cells producing stuff and then they turn to other cells and they produce more stuff and then they turn to other cells and they produce more stuff, all with the idea of developing, in this case bone, but any tissue would be we say came the same kind of a way. It's just amazing, amazing, amazing what our bodies can do, and all done, and we don't ever think anything about it. We don't have to do anything. It just does it, and man, it is flat out amazing. But I say it all the time, and both in this class and in the bio stuff. I mean, what our bodies do, what our cells do, you couldn't develop a machine that's as efficient as what our cells are that do what they do. Because the machines you gotta monitor, you gotta fix, you gotta repair. Man, our bodies do all that. Not only do they develop the cells, they develop the processes to take care of the cells, and it's just amazing. And I say it all the time, and it's why I love this stuff. And it's just in every semester. I mean, you'd think doing the same stuff over and over again, man, it just never gets old. I mean, I love talking about this stuff, and this is going to be a great one. But don't get ahead of ourselves. Hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for opening this up and viewing this. Appreciate that, and as always, love you guys. Appreciate you guys for what you're doing and the direction, and just letting me be a part of your journey in the directions that you're going. Man, it's just fantastic. Love doing this. And so, but again, thank you, welcome, and hopefully you enjoy this. Hopefully you're doing all right. Hopefully mentally, physically, emotionally, you're in a good spot. And that I know it's tough. I mean, we're in class directly. We're at the midway point. Ooh, that reminds me. I better make myself a note here. I got to do the mid quarters. I hadn't written that down on my to-do list today yet, and that needs to be done today. So thank you for reminding me about that. Pausing to add to my to-do list. That's not a strong teacher move, but it is what it is. So, but I'll get that taken care of. But you guys don't have to worry about that. I mean, you guys all have great grades and everything. So, but again, welcome, thank you, and let's get started. As always, got the glass of water here. This is the first recording of the day. It's early as far as this process, about almost 11 o'clock here, and typically that second video of each time I've upgraded to a little soft drink, a little Dr. Pepper, since it's after lunch. And of course, got my notes, 2 pages. So here we go. Let's get started. So, as I mentioned, let's get this arrow out of here. It's going to get in the way of the typing later on. And then let's get back to the red, and then we'll just close that. Okay, as we mentioned, we're going to be talking about the development of bones today, and just the fantasticness of that process. It's just amazing. And this image right here, this little diagram here, it was up a lot higher. That was kind of early on in our talk last time, but I brought it down just enough where you could see the bottom of it, because we're going to be talking about compact bone, spongy bone, a lot in those developments. And I just wanted you to see the top and the bottom of that, just to remind you that the spongy bone is here in the end, and the compact bone is along the more of the shaft. Just so you kind of have a sense of reference, point of reference as to where what we're doing and what we're talking about here. So let's get started. Let's get myself a little box here. We're going to move this way up here. All right, so we're talking about, we're going to first talk about, we're going to start with compact bone. Okay, compact bone. And again, I'll type this as I always do, then I'll make that larger. So if you just want to listen until the end, and then I'll make that larger, and then you can write everything, or you can write it as we go. If you can see plenty good enough, that we'll leave that up to you. All right, so when we're talking compact bone, okay, we're talking osteon system. And when we say system, that's exactly what we mean, because it's a series of steps, it's a process. The fascinating part about all this is that it's not just, the bone is not just a hardened piece of tissue. It isn't just it's not like a pipe, not like a rod, a steel rod or something like that. It's not just one thing. And it's not just poured and melted. Poured and cooled and hardened, like making a nail would be. It's a series. It's a process. There's a lot of things involved. And the cool aspect of this, there's even the process in place to make it stronger, and to think that all that information, to develop the bones and every other system and organs and tissues, all comes from the information on your DNA at fertilization. And again, sorry you had to hear that. And the development of that. It's just mind-boggling how that system could be in place simply from the instructions on the DNA. Those 46 chromosomes, the information that they contain, and the people that have figured all that out, that's way above my pay grade right there. That's way above my ability to comprehend. And I say it a lot of times. I can talk about this stuff. I can describe how it's going or what's happening. I can talk a little bit about the hows and whys, but some of this stuff, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty deep, and all just from the information off our DNA. It's simply amazing. All right, osteon system. Okay, what that comes down to, let's get a little outline format here. It's a series of canals. And we're going to talk about this picture over here. As I do this, just kind of, we'll type a little bit, talk a little bit, type a little bit, talk a little bit, as we always do. Series of canals that are connected. Okay, they're connected to each other, through tissue layers and stuff. And do a little comment. But they run opposite to increase strength. Okay, and so then we'll close that out, and then we'll come over here, get a little pen. Okay, and we're talking, the image that is right there. So you can see, where's our reference? Oh, right there's our reference to central canal. Okay, that initial section there, central canal, and then as you can see, and this would be the central canal. Let me draw a little arrow right to that first part there. That would be the central canal as well. Okay, then you have just a series of canals here, and then you can see with our lines here, this one's running this way. Okay, This one's running this way. And that's what we're talking about, running opposite of each other. Okay, and that increases the strength. If they were all going in one direction, I mean, you guys know how the grain of something works. They're all going in one direction. Any little crack or stress area is just going to travel right through. Okay, but when the underneath section is going the opposite way, okay, that works to prevent that, or works to just increase the overall strength. But that's just pretty amazing stuff. And we haven't even gotten to this interhighway of blood vessels and nerve fibers that looks a lot like, I mean, electrical stuff. When you got all the different color wires and things doing different ground, you got the grounds and you got the positives and the negatives and the different auxiliary. Like if you ever put up a ceiling fan, it's got a light. Oh man, they got all kinds of colors in there. One's for the light, some for the fan, some for the switch, all kinds of stuff. But just amazing stuff. Alright, so let's close this back out here, come back over here, a little edit, because we are not done. Okay. Nutrient. No, I knew I didn't do that right when I was banging on the keys. Turn A there, nope. Alright, nutrient formula. Now that, just a reminder, that's the plural version of this word. Foreman would be the singular. And it's plural because there's a whole bunch of them, as you can see. But anytime you see that word, you know it's going to reference just a hole, okay, a space, which allows the blood vessels and nerve fibers to travel through. Runs the length of the bone. And so again, we're talking length, okay, we're talking the entire thing here. You can't just start a hole in the middle. You got to be at the end, working your way through, and then out the other end. Okay. Now the cool thing here, this particular bone and all of them get a half a liter. Okay, half a liter blood per minute. So every time a minute goes by, half a liter. So if you can think of a 2-liter bottle of pop, okay, 1/4 of that, okay, would be half of a liter. So that's big old jugs here, and so then you got, but you can do the mental image there. Okay, and these blood vessels feed the central canal, and so that's when we say feed, we're talking provide resources, oxygen, ions, you know, different things like that it needs. And of course, our last point here, each osteen has a formula, because you can see each of the osteens here. Oh, and I meant to say this earlier. You can see the one that we talked about here, but you can see multiple ones, and of course this is a cross section both here and here. So this is like almost 1/4 of the bone. So there's a bunch of them in there. Okay, a bunch of them. So again, that just leads to the fact that trying to make it as strong as possible. Okay, so when you get all these different systems in here, it isn't just one hardened piece of tissue. Okay, it's a series of spots of tissue, which all add to the strength, all add to the whole process of getting the blood through there, so it can really supply it well and keep it as healthy as possible. And of course, along with the red and blue, you see the yellow in there. Okay, so it does have nerve fibers. So if you can think about this, if in this quarter section you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll go with if that's 3, 4, 5. So in a quarter section in this diagram, you've got 7. So if you just did the math and assumed 28 to 30 osteins in like your leg bone or upper arm bone, and then when those break, okay, we know the tremendous pain, as I referenced last time. When you watch a sporting event and you see someone that breaks their leg bone, they're in a lot of pain, and so you could see why here. If you've got, if you get a clean break, I mean, you could have 28 to 30 nerve fibers just screaming at you with the intensity of the pain. And that's why, I mean, when you see an NFL player, NBA player, Major League Baseball player, I mean, these aren't just Mr. Stewart stuff walking around. I mean, these are big, strong, tough men who are used to pain and having to endure, and mental toughness. And you can see them, they're just in a lot of pain, and you can see the reason why that would be the case. All right, so that's compact bone. And again, when we're talking compact bone, we're talking, runs along the shaft here, as we mentioned last time. So let's close that out, and we'll start us a new one. Okay, because now we'll be on spongy bone. Oh, you know what? I didn't do what I said I would do, so let me blow this up in case you were waiting for the moment where it's really big, where you can see it. Okay, so I'll dramatically pause here, assuming that if we're waiting for it, that you will pause it as well. So 3, 2, 1. All right, so that should have given you time to get it paused. Move everything back over and up. So I got to go over here a little bit more, because as always, we don't want to hide information, and we certainly don't want to cover that up, because that's the star of the show right there. That's why you guys are here. Not really. You guys would probably prefer if I go back to the old way, where that picture, that image wasn't there. Now you just heard the voice. The voice was enough. So a little edit here, because we've just started this show. Let's actually move this up a little bit here. All right, spongy bone. Now, spongy bone is composed of basically three things here, and one of them is going to be empty space. So, but that's got a tremendous function as well. But spinacles. No, I did that one too early. What I got? Oh yeah, I left a P out. And these are just slivers of bone. And you can see that goes right over here. Okay, these little slivers here. Okay, and then those slivers turn into trabecula. No, I didn't do that right. AE. And these are just woven layers of spoculus, and as you can see that develop here, that's the look of bone that you see, especially when you look at it microscopically. But when you see those kind of interwoven pieces, and then you can see it heavily. Let's find my word here. Yeah, right in here. And lastly, the spaces are filled with red bone marrow, and you can see that We talked about that up here when we talked about spongy bone, and so that's what the spaces are filled with that. And just a clarification, there's no Osteens. In spongy bone. Okay, so that's spongy bone there. Oh, I forgot something. Supposed to be right there. I knew I had that picture there for a reason. Had this picture here for a reason. The trabecula develops along stress lines. Okay, and not stress lines on the outside where like maybe with the bone being flexed or bent in a particular way, stress line. These are internal stress lines. And we will close out this and grab this. Okay, and these are, so we're talking about this, and then you can see these stress lines here, and of course the purple as well. You can see that those are labeled lines of stress. And so basically, if you want to think of it as from an earth science standpoint, fault lines within. Okay, so along those areas on both sides is where the trabecula develops. Okay, close that out. And we're going on to, let's slide everything up. I think we're done with, let me look here real fast. Yeah, we're done with that picture there, so we can slide up here. Okay, next topic. Bone marrow. Okay, let me close this out because I just remembered in case you're waiting for it to get big so you can see it all. There you go. So at this point in time, if that was you, you're pausing this so you can write all that down. So a little 3, 2, 1. That should have given you time to do that. And so slide this up and over a little bit and edit. I mean, that's a lot of strong teacher moves right there. I mean, we're zooming in, we're zooming out, we're editing. I mean, we're doing dramatic pauses so people can write stuff down. I mean, that's a lot of good stuff right there. Something in my eye right there. All right, bone marrow. That's our next topic. Okay. Now the word bone marrow, let's just start with this. It's just a general term. In other words, it's an umbrella term. There's different types, and so when we say the word bone marrow, it's a general term because there are two types. And when we say two types, that's kind of even that's misleading. Basically, one after you get to a certain age, older adults. So like me, okay, certainly an older adult, way too old. But you got your first type. Okay, you got your red bone marrow. And I'm just going to go out from there because there's only one thing to add about it. And if I put it down below, it's going to seem like this is all one thing. But since there are two types, we're going to break it up like this. But the red bone marrow is composed of, and here's a great science word. Let's make sure I spell it right because you know me. Homeostatic tissue. Okay, this tissue produces red blood cells. Okay, and that's super important to help feed, make sure all this stuff, we got enough of those to take care of all this, especially at a half a liter. I mean, that didn't sound like a lot, But if you have a half a liter of blood, I mean that's a pretty big chunk of blood, especially when you're thinking every minute. So every 4 minutes, you'd have the the bone would receive 2 liters of blood, and if you have a 2 liter bottle of blood, I mean that's a lot of blood right there. Okay, and so that is the red bone marrow. Okay, yellow bone marrow. Okay, as I mentioned, older adults. And I'm just going to put the red RBM, red bone marrow. So if you write red bone marrow, just make sure you understand. I mean, if you write RBM, that's red bone marrow. And I'm going to do YBM just to save space, yellow bone marrow. So basically, at some point in time throughout your years, the red bone marrow just kind of stops doing what it's doing and turns into yellow, which is more fatty. Okay, and of course, it would stand to reason it stops producing RBCs, red blood cells. And so my bones have probably done that long ago, just more fatty tissue in there. And so that's the yellow bone marrow. And we've seen the fat layers, they get that kind of a yellowish look, so that's where the yellow word or yellow name comes from. All right, and we're just about to the end of the first page of notes. And another strong teacher move. I've got this spaced out well enough to where I'm going to type my next section, which is about this picture, so I'm lined up pretty good there. So that's a strong teacher move. That's pretty organized, preemptive organization right there. All right, so our next topic, bone development. Okay, and let's pause this and once again blow this up just in case you were waiting for that. And I do that because some people may watch these on their phone, and if a phone with that size of the screen, it would be pretty challenging to see that small of a type. So there you go, a little dramatic pause, and back to 62. Let's move up just a little bit here, slide over. All right, little edit. All right, bone development. Now, our first thing, and we're talking in a fetus, so we're talking early on. I mean, the fertilization occurred, and yes, sorry you didn't hear that. It has occurred, and now this new embryo is developing, and so now it's time for the bones to begin to develop. And there's 2 methods. Okay. Oh, I didn't put my little mark there. 2 methods. Okay, and it's not that it's not a part 1, part 2. It's a some bones get made this way, other bones get made this way. Okay, and so we'll label those, but it's essentially in one of the methods, it's the skull and the clavicle, okay, the collarbones right in through here, they get made with one way, and then all the rest of the bones get made in the other fashion. But we will clearly label that process, and you can see it right here. This obviously is method 1, and it produces the flat bones of the skull and the clavicle. And then method 2 produces all of the rest. But the name of that first method, which is highlighted by this diagram right here, which we will take a look at after we spell out all the information. Intravenous intramembranous, I didn't say all the letters there, ossification. And of course that ossification just simply means that's the building process. That is the building process. The other way, intracondylar ossification. No, I don't want that D there. I was itching. And hopefully that when you see this chondrial reference within a word, that you understand that that's cartilage related. And when we talk about that process, we'll be mentioning the words cartilage bunch. And let me go ahead and put out here, even though it's right over there, skull and clavicle. And of course, then down here, we're going to put all the rest. So all the rest of them that you want to list them, feel free. But for me, I'm just going to type all the rest. And we're flipping over to page 2 there. So if you use that as a reference point, we're over halfway done because this page isn't completely full. So hence the over halfway done. Alright, so let's just close this out and start a new one. And we're going to slide up just a little bit here. And so we'll start a new one, drag this over. And we'll talk about the first one. Intramembranous ossification. Just rolls off the tongue there. Alright, so first thing, and we'll reference it again. Okay, in a fetus, so we're talking early on. Okay, early on. Alright, and so we mentioned at the beginning, this is the process. I mean, this is not just the bone tissue develops, the bone tissue hardens, and boom, we got a bone. No. Okay, lots going on here, and so here we will spell it out. Alright, starts with mesenchymal cells. Okay, and they lay down layers. They lay down layers of mesenchymal tissue. Okay, and that's the foundation of the bone. Okay, then the next step that happens, and I'm just going to do MC, mesenchymal cells. Okay, so just make sure that if you write down MC, that maybe you draw a little arrow up to mesenchymal cells just to remind yourself what that means. Okay, but they become osteogenic cells. And we've talked about this process already. And if you're like, okay, so if I drag this over here, okay, so we've talked about all these types of bone cells, osteogenic cells becoming osteoblasts, which become osteocytes. Okay, so we talked about that last time, and that process is what's going to be happening during this process. So let's move this over. Right there should be good. Little edit. Okay, and then lost my place here. Okay, and again, so I'm going to put OC just for space, but remember I'm talking about osteogenic cells. So if you want to draw a little arrow up to your previous note, To remind yourself what that is, feel free to do so. But they become, and what we just mentioned, osteoblast. And we've mentioned a bunch of times that if you see that blast at the end of something, that means that's the cells that lay down the tissue or the matrix, or they just produce all the things that are needed for that particular fiber. That's a better way of saying it. Okay, and then of course the osteoblasts produce materials needed to make the fiber, needed for bone development. Okay, nice long note there for you. And then lastly, the blood provides any needed, nope, not that, any needed nutrients is brought in with all the rest. Okay, so we will close that, and now in a two-purpose event here, we'll blow this up. One, in case you were wanting to type this, now you can pause the screen. You got that big. And secondly, so we can look at this process. So you can see the 4 steps here. Okay. Now here's the beginning of that mesenchymal tissue. So you got the blood vessel here to providing things along the way. But the mesenchymal cells have produced mesenchyme, and now it condenses. In other words, kind of hardens or develops into these soft sheets that we're talking about here. Okay, and then the osteoblast, start producing the tissue, just as we mentioned over here. And of course, now you can see, of course, all these little things here. That's the osteoblast. So just a reference point to previous discussions. Single layer. Okay, so simple. Okay, and of course, it's got kind of a squamous look to it there as well. So the osteoblasts are producing the stuff. And of course, we're also, as we mentioned in our earlier discussion, osteoblasts also turn into osteocytes, which are right here as well. You can see, and in this area in here, that's the trabecula that we've been talking about. So just a lot of things going on, but you can just see from part 1 to part 2, just this bone tissue beginning to really develop. Okay, now by the time we get to 3, the trabecula has really started to develop. We get that honeycomb look. You know what? That's the word I was trying to say. I didn't mention, but I was trying to think of earlier because I had that word. I knew there was a word to better describe that woven look. And let me go back down here and go back up here. This woven look here. I used the word woven, but I knew there was a word and I couldn't think of it. But yeah, honeycomb type look to it. Anyway, that's starting to develop, and you can see the blood vessels are really starting to develop as well, to permeate and to just provide anything that's needed, to get that done. And now the tissue develops even further, and now we've even got the compact bone, the spongy bone, all that stuff going on. You can still see the osteoblasts here, which will continue to produce as long as the bone is developing, growing. Okay, will continue to produce everything that is needed. So that's intramembranous ossification. So let me slide back out to my 62. There we go, and then we will drop down here one more time, and for our last section. So we're going to do endochondral ossification, and then we're going to be done. Okay, we'll be done with this particular video. So let me get a little text box here, and we'll go way over here. And well, since this is the all right, I had a thought there, but it wasn't something I needed to do. Endochondral ossification. You know what? I do want to do. This is what I was thinking about doing, just kind of blowing this up. And then so you can see it well as we type. Little edit there. Alright, so now this process is more lengthy than the intramembranous ossification, but it has a lot of the same aspects. So, and we'll point those out as we go along the way. Okay, so we're still in a fetus. Okay, so it's still early on. I mean, obviously we know that bones don't begin to develop, after birth. That would just be, it would probably make the process a lot easier if that were the case. But we know that's not the case. And so, but just a reference point, we were still in the fetus. But more importantly, it starts about week 6. Starts about week 6 and ends, I'll just put this even though it's not super important, when in your 20s. Okay, in your 20s there, which I can't even remember anymore. All right, so, and we referenced this, hence the name, develops from cartilage tissue. Okay, and again, hence the name endochondral ossification, cartilage tissue. Okay, but again, we've got a lot of the same stuff going on. So I'm going to do MC, mesenchymal cells. So just if you write MC, whether you got to draw you an arrow way up over, I started to point to the screen, way up over here, that's fine, but recognize that that's mesenchymal cells, or you can just write it out. Okay, we're laying down that soft tissue again, the mesenchymal tissue. Okay, no, I'm back up. I'm going to put it up here because it's a continuation of the thought. No, that ain't right. Which turns into hyaline cartilage. Okay. Which becomes the future bone. So you can just picture this kind of these cells laying out this tissue as we saw up above there, and that converts into the hyaline cartilage, and then that becomes the foundation for the bone itself. Okay, then as we mentioned earlier, mesenchymal cells. No, that ain't right. Turn into, well, I'll go ahead and type it out the first time. Genic cells. Which become osteoblast. So we have that whole process again. The mesenchymal cells go into the osteogenic cells, which become the osteoblast cells. So I mean, I try not to say it too often, but man, it's just phenomenal how efficient, process-driven the body can be, and all based on just instructions from the DNA, and it's just amazing to me. Okay, and of course, as always, the osteoblast begins to lay down tissue to form the bones. And this which turns into the central canal, which takes us back to our where we begun this process of showing that central canal and all those Osteen systems. So the osteoblasts start to lay down that tissue, that converts into. I just realized I didn't put my little symbol there, which turned into central canal, and then that whole process begins to develop. Okay, then the bone marrow cavities develop. Okay, and the next step, the epiphysis. Filled with spongy bone. And we are fast approaching the end here. Articular cartilage. Cover the bone. And then our last step, the growth plates. Nope, that ain't right. And zones, which we discussed in our last episode, those develop. And then how do you spell this? Voila. No, that can't be right. So let's go with BAM. Yeah, BAM. And then, so I do the end here. And then BAM. You have a bone. Move this up a little bit here. And there it is. So, hey, that is the processes that are involved when you develop bone. So if you want to begin to develop your own bones, you just got to follow those steps right there. Get yourself some mesenchymal cells and get after it. And but if you do make a bone, hey, I want to see it. Bring it to class, and so I can see that bad boy right there, because that'd be cool to see your own our own self-made bone. Get you some mesenchymal cells, which will start to lay down some mesenchymal tissue, which will turn into hyaline cartilage. And then, of course, those cells will turn into osteogenic cells, which become osteoblasts. Osteoblasts begin to lay down the tissue and fiber, and the needed stuff to make the fibers, and then that develops the central canal, and on and on and on. Yeah, so if you do that, bring that to class so we can take a look at that. I'd love seeing that. But hey, there you go. That's the process right there. And I hope you enjoyed that. Man, I know it's work to get everything remembered and to process it and everything. But man, one thing I hope that you don't miss, or that you don't forget, especially when you got there in the job. I mean, those that are going into the nursing field, especially if you end up in a hospital somewhere, I mean, between myself and my wife, we've spent a lot of time in the hospital, especially when she was going through her leading up to and post lung transplant because of her cystic fibrosis. I mean, from the years of, let me think, '09 to 14, yeah, those 5 years, I don't even want to know how many weekends I spent sitting in a fake recliner in a hospital room, or and that's after driving up to St. Louis or Columbia, after school on Friday, and then driving back midday Sunday, and those are some rough years. But it's we're enjoying it now. The fact that she's knocking on this wooden desk, still here with me. But what I'm trying to say is even in those days when it's just it's 40 hours a week and it's double shifts and it's whatever, that you don't forget just how amazing the human body is and all that it can do. And when you are and it's not, I mean, it's the patients that you'll be taking care of and stuff, but man, it's what's going on. I mean, how the body can take care of itself and produce what it needs, and in an indirect manner, the brain is associating that process, but you don't have to think about it. You don't have to control it. You don't have to process it. It micromanages itself, and that is simply amazing. Well, hey, that's it for now. Let me quit reminiscing about the glory days and all that sentimental stuff. And anyway, have yourself a great rest of your day. And again, I hope you're in a good spot mentally, physically, emotionally. And I hope everyone around you is in good shape with the virus and with everything. And with that, hey, we will say goodbye.